With around 3,000 tribes and 2,000 languages and dialects, Africa is a continent with fascination around every corner. Other continents of the world lack Africa's natural diversity. In this video, we look at some of the most bizarre cultural practices practiced by some of the African tribes. Some of these tribal practices will blow up your mind. Let's dive right in. Scarification. Scarification is the practice of creating designs, symbols, or text on the skin using incisions. In some African tribes, scarification has been a tradition for thousands of years and is used for a variety of purposes, including rite of passage ceremonies, aesthetic expression, and cultural identity. In African tribes, scarification is practiced by the Gonja, Dagomba, Frafra, Marcuse, Nanumba, Bali, Tfin, Bobo, Montol, Kofiar, Yoruba, and Tiv people of West Africa, and the Dinka, Nua, Surma, Shilluk, Toposa, Moru, Bonde, Shambar, Barabeg, and Maasai people of East Africa. Different scarification have symbolic meaning, and the designs can vary greatly from tribe to tribe. For example, in some tribes, a particular scarification pattern might be used to mark a person's passage into adulthood, while in others it might signify a person's tribe or social status. The process of scarification typically involves using a sharp instrument, such as a knife or razor, to make cuts in the skin. The cuts are then left to heal, leaving behind raised scars in the shape of the desired design. The process can be painful, and it is usually performed by an experienced practitioner who is knowledgeable about the cultural significance of the various scarification patterns. Scarification has declined in popularity in many African tribes in recent years, as more people have become exposed to Western cultural norms and values. However, it remains an important part of the cultural heritage of many African tribes and is still practiced by some communities today. Lip plates. Lip plates, also known as lip plugs or lip discs, are objects worn in the lower or upper lip, stretching and distending the lip to create a protruding ornament. They are most commonly used in various cultural and traditional practices in some African tribes, such as the Mursi and the Sui in Ethiopia and the Dali in Tanzania. The Mursi tribe is an ethnic group located in the Omo River Valley in southern Ethiopia. They are known for their unique cultural practices, one of which is the tradition of wearing lip plates by women. A lip plate, also known as a lip disc, is a form of body modification in which a circular plate is inserted into a hole in the lower lip. The size of the plate is gradually increased over time, creating a stretched lip that can become quite large. The Mursi tribe believes that the larger the lip plate, the more beautiful and marriageable a woman is considered to be. This practice is considered to be a symbol of social status, wealth, and beauty. It is important to note that the tradition of wearing lip plates is a personal choice and not all women in the Mursi tribe choose to undergo this practice. Additionally, the use of lip plates has declined in recent years, partly due to the influence of modern Western culture and the negative impact it has had on traditional African practices. The practice of wearing lip plates is controversial and has been criticized by some as painful and damaging to the body, and as a form of oppression against women. Some have also argued that the practice is being commodified and commercialized, leading to its erosion as a cultural tradition. Do you think this kind of practice should be abandoned since it's kind of inhuman? Let us know in the comments section. Wife inheritance. Wife inheritance, also known as levirate marriage, is a cultural practice found in some African tribes where a widow is expected to marry the brother of her deceased husband. This tradition is believed to have originated from a belief that the deceased husband's spirit would rest in peace if the widowed wife continued to bear children in his name. The practice is also seen as a way to ensure the continuation of the deceased husband's family line. However, this practice has been criticized for violating women's rights and causing emotional distress for the widowed wife. Some women are forced into these marriages against their will and are subjected to emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. This practice also perpetuates harmful gender stereotypes and reinforces the notion that women are merely property to be inherited. In recent years, there have been efforts to eradicate this tradition and promote gender equality in African communities. Many African countries have enacted laws that prohibit forced marriages, including wife inheritance. However, the practice still persists in some rural areas where tradition holds strong. Wife inheritance was for centuries practiced among and is still practiced by a few Nilotic Luo peoples of western Kenya, northern Uganda and the Mara region of Tanzania as part of the metaphysics of their cultures. Like other practices, it echoed the unwritten laws of the ancestors who acted as the interceders to the gods. The Luo of Kenya for a long time termed the practice teo, or leko, to mean the right of inheriting a widow. Wife inheritance also obtains among other Nilotic groups such as the Dinka, Nua, Achuit and Eniwak of South Sudan and Ethiopia. The practice was also common among Bantu tribes of East Africa such as the Abaluhya, Maragali, Bukusu and Samia, and Abagusii of Kenya and the Bagwa people of Uganda. It was strongly present among southern Bantus of Zimbabwe and Mozambique and southeastern Bantus of Malawi. All these tribes in their separate ways regarded wife inheritance as an institution of widow care chiefly established to protect the widow and children of the deceased. Hiring of mourners. In some African cultures and tribes, the tradition of hiring professional mourners to lead and participate in funeral ceremonies still exists today. These mourners are often known as griots or grivaliers and are hired to sing, dance, and lead the procession to honor the deceased and provide comfort to the bereaved. The griot's role is to help facilitate the mourning process and ensure that the deceased is remembered and honored in a dignified manner. It is also believed that the presence of professional mourners can help the deceased spirit find peace and make the transition to the afterlife smoother. This tradition is still prevalent in many African cultures, particularly in West Africa, where the griots have a rich cultural heritage and are considered to be an integral part of the community. The types of hired mourners can vary, but they typically perform mourning rituals such as wailing, singing, and dancing. Some cultures may also hire people to play musical instruments or lead prayers. Funeral ceremonies in African cultures can be a big deal because they are seen as an important opportunity to honor and celebrate the life of the deceased, and to bring together the community to offer support to the bereaved. Funerals are also often seen as an opportunity to pass on cultural traditions and beliefs about death and the afterlife. The practice of hiring mourners is common in many African tribes, especially in West African countries such as Ghana and Nigeria. The amount that mourners are paid can vary, but it is typically a small fee for their services. In some African cultures, remembering the dead after 40 days of death is an important tradition. This can include rituals such as visiting the gravesite, offering prayers, or making offerings of food. In the case the Bukusu, a sub-tribe of Luhya in western Kenya, the tradition of taking food to the grave and believing that the deceased has eaten the food is a way of acknowledging their continued presence in the community and honoring their memory. In traditional Luhya culture, it is believed that if a deceased person is not buried in their ancestral home, their spirit will not be able to rest and may bring misfortune to the family. If the dead refuse to go home to be buried, it may indicate that there is an unresolved issue or conflict that needs to be addressed. It is also believed that failure to bury the dead in their ancestral home is a sign of disrespect and can result in the community ostracizing the family. In such cases, it is customary for the community to hold discussions and negotiations to find a solution that will allow the deceased to be buried in their ancestral home. This may involve resolving the issue causing the conflict or finding alternative arrangements that are acceptable to all parties involved. In modern times, however, this belief may be less strict and burial arrangements may be influenced by practical considerations such as distance, cost, and availability of cemetery space. Removal of front teeth. There are some African tribes that have historically practiced the removal of their front teeth as a cultural tradition. This practice is most commonly associated with the Mursi and Surma tribes, which are located in Ethiopia. The Luo and Maasai tribes of Kenya and the Karamojong tribe of Uganda are among other tribes that do teeth removal. The reasons for this practice are varied and may include cultural and aesthetic factors, as well as traditional beliefs about the teeth being a source of evil spirits. It is also sometimes done as a form of identification or to indicate status within the tribe. In these tribes, both men and women may have their lower incisor teeth removed as a rite of passage, usually around puberty. The procedure is typically done without anesthesia, and involves knocking out the teeth with a hammer or stone. In some instances, the removal of front teeth among the Luo and Maasai communities has been linked to cultural beliefs around beauty and traditional rites of passage. For example, in the Maasai culture, the removal of teeth is sometimes performed as part of a coming-of-age ceremony for boys. Among the Luo, it has been reported that the removal of front teeth is believed to make a woman more beautiful and thus more desirable for marriage. It's important to note that this practice is not universal among the Luo and Maasai communities, and it is not considered a mainstream or widely accepted practice in modern times. In fact, some organizations have actively worked to discourage the practice, as it can have negative health consequences, including difficulty with eating and speaking, as well as an increased risk of dental infections.